Hi. Well, now it's time for the Chapter 2 lecture. Hopefully you got a chance to look at the Week 2 uh, coming attractions, what I expect this week. So let's get right into the lecture. Today we're talking about Chapter 2, Project Management. Just how does it apply in the world of information technology? So the chapter's a high-level summary and some of the different techniques, uh, issues, concerns that affect project managers. So we're going to try to overview some project management, how it applies to IT, look at different organizations, understand how management involvement or commitment plays a role, uh, understand some of the other project phases and life cycle. What's a history? How does a project go from cradle to grave, and what kind of steps does it go through? Some attributes of an IT project, some trends that are going on with track fix. So one thing that's key with project management is IT projects are never run in isolation. There's always a lot of different people involved, different technologies, different hardware, different software. So a good project manager needs to be thinking about the overall system. How does it apply in the context of everything that comes into play in running a project? Now, in this systems approach, it's been around since the 50s, but it includes, a philosophy of just making sure you're thinking about everything that you're going to touch as part of a inner working system: software, hardware, people, processes, HR, location of employees, skill sets of employees. All of this stuff needs to be thought about together in managing a project successfully. How do I analyze the system? Make sure I'm actually trying to solve a particular project or a problem in this. And then how do I manage this system? What kind of things do I have to address to solve this problem? Now, this systems management piece has three pieces to it. It's got a business part, cost, the impact on the organization. What's it going to do? Just like if it's school, is enrollment going up, going down? What does the organizations need to do? How does it affect the users, the people, the developers, and then the technology piece? What kind of hardware are we going to use? What kind of software we're going to use? What kind of network's going to be involved if necessary? And a project manager needs to think about all three of those aspects when they're managing their project. Now, other things that come into play when you're managing organizations is I have to understand the structure of the organization. An org chart shows who's on top, who are the vice presidents, managers, who's going to be the working human resources, needs of the organization versus the people. Political. Are there any political issues I need to worry about? Are there any individuals or team or intercompany groups that are in power struggle, conflict, whatever the case may be? And then symbolic, are there languages and cultures and meanings, especially if you're on a worldwide stage where you're dealing with different groups of people from different countries, you may have different cultural and language issues that need to be addressed. Now, just to give you a rough idea, here's the three different types of organizational structures: functional, project, and matrix. Functional is each organization. I got an engineering, manufacturing, IT, HR, and all their staffs. Harder to manage this way because a project manager doesn't have authority in each one of these silos. A project base, where you got a project a program manager with project managers underneath with, on that aspect. Sometimes that can be an issue as far as resources being made available or not having enough or wasted resources. So projects are hard to manage that way. And then there's a kind of a combination where it's a matrix where I've got my functional organizations, but then I also have project managers that cross multiple disciplines. So I've got project manager, A, going across all the different groups as far as making sure that they have what they need for their project. So they report up the line to their program manager. These people report. So basically everybody here has two bosses. Positive, negatives. I worked in both the functional organization and the matrix. Both have their pros and cons. I guess I prefer the matrix because at least I have some autonomy in getting the job done. Just some pros and cons, some weaknesses, some characteristics based on the different types. So take a look at that. The culture. Of course, the culture is just a shared set of values and behaviors. A lot of companies, this is probably the number one reason projects fail. It's not the staff. It's not that. It's just people don't like change, or you're changing an assumption, you're changing a value, you're changing the way they're going to behave and do their job. And people and change sometimes don't always get along. Now, some characteristics, I'm not going to go through all of these, but these are things that a project manager needs to keep in mind. What group do they belong to? How much is this group willing to handle risk? Or how do they handle conflict? Are they going to handle conflict by not saying anything and you think silence is golden? Or are they going to be in your face fighting you tooth and nail? Different aspects. So a project manager needs to understand how that culture could impact his project. Now, one of the biggest issues is, do I have the top management's commitment? If I don't have a president's support, the project's dead from the start. Because I may need resources, I may need commitment, I may need just knowing that they're supporting it and involved definitely helps the success of the project, because they can provide adequate resources, they can make sure everything's being done in a timely fashion. Maybe they need funding from other parts of the organization. Sometimes they can help coach and mentor a project manager, how to deal with cultural issues, because they've set up this organization so they can help you get through some of those minefields there. Now, as a project manager, there is definitely a life cycle, a process of how do I want to take a project from start to finish. So each phase has different aspects that work needs to be done. There are deliverables and checkpoints and sign-offs and things along each phase to make sure that it's successful and ready to go on to the next phase. Just give you some rough idea. Project feasibility is I'm taking a project from concept to start laying out the plan to actually implementing it, and then what happens when the project's done, and then some of the deliverables that may be associated along each way. So keep an eye on what's delivered at each different step, because you're going to, as a project manager, you're going to make sure as I go to the phase, I've got to have sign off on the business case, the cost estimate, the work breakdown, WBS's work breakdown structure, before I can move on to the development phase. So as a project manager, you're going to verify that that stuff's done, along with making sure it's complete for the next phase. So there are several different types of system development life cycles, SDLC. There's predictive or adaptive. So some predictive life cycles, waterfall model. Basically very linear, very staged, very structured approach, very good for large systems. Spiral model is developed using iterative approach versus a linear. Incremental build. I'm going to make sure I build projects along the way. Maybe I'm building a prototype, or I want to do a rapid development, rapid application, rapid prototyping, get applications there. Agile is one of those rapid development. We'll go definitely a whole lot more into it in chapter 3, but it's popular because I'm focusing on delivering workable product every step of the way, and I'm working with programmers along with customers to make sure that I've got something deliverable as we're going all the way through the system. Now, these different phases, I've got to have exit points, or in this case, they're calling them kill points, but basically, I just got to have sign off between different phases to know that I'm done and everybody agrees that we're ready to move on. So that's kind of what those phase exits are, these project phase reviews, management reviews. Now, IT, as far as how project management ITs, the biggest thing with this is project management, they're very diverse. Oops, went back one too many. Based on complexity, time, skill sets, everything's diverse. Everything's changing rapidly. So this is probably the biggest thing as far as difference of IT versus project management for construction. A little bit different. So just keep in mind that diversity along multiple facets is key. Now, different types of trends in IT projects. Globalization. I've had projects where I've had software developers from Germany, France, the US. I've had to outsource. Basically, it says I'm going to pay somebody else to do the work. I don't have to pay for somebody in-house to do it. Or offshoring means I'm going to go to some other country. Now, today's technology allows you to work remotely. So with the advance of internet and the web, all this stuff allows me to create teams across the whole realm and still keep them communicating with all the online tools at our disposal. Now, a brief thing on agile development. Basically, I'm moving quickly and easily, but I'm really not worried about a waterfall. I'm not worried about anything else. But basically, what I'm doing is I'm developing iterative, incremental developments, but as I'm working through this, I'm making sure there's something deliverable every step of the way. If you look at the website PM Text, there's a section on agile development project management. Very good. A lot of information there that could help offset, help give you more information on agile development. Back in 2001, a group of 17 people came together in this Agile Alliance and came up with this manifesto. I'm not going to read it for you, but it's got some good ideas. Just a better way of doing things, but they're worried about individuals versus interactions versus the tools. They want to work on software versus documentation, because you'll find that the waterfall models, there's tons of documentation that comes into play. And then they'd rather respond to change than work in on a frame. Now, Scrum is just a method of agile development. And it basically has, my product based on the product owner, the champion comes up with a list of features that needs to be done. Of course, they say, okay, I can't do all of them at one time, so I create what they call a sprint, and this ends up being the small feature that I'm going through. And it's somewhere between 2 weeks and a month, go through, and then based on those features, you're working through everything, meeting daily to discuss how your status is going, and then your results, you're looking at, how successful are we? Kanban is basically used by, Toyota came up with this. It's a relationship to this, but it gives you a visual view of the status. And then PMBOK, PMI has this certification for agile development if you're so interested. So in this chapter, you've got a high-level view of, project managers and a systems approach, different types, and hopefully it gives you a rough idea of what's going on. Have a nice day.